Hello, I'm Bill Botel and welcome to episode 6 of Clocking Corona. In the last episode, we looked closely at how the Australian government responded to the threat posed by HIV and AIDS when it emerged in the early 1980s. And the word that governed our response at that time was the word trust. The Australian government took the momentous decision to trust the people with everything it knew about HIV, how it spread and did not spread. They took the decision to trust the Parliament, to trust the press, and to trust affected communities with the responsibility to come up with the best possible policy responses to AIDS care, treatment, research, and above all, prevention. And I'm happy to say that approach worked tremendously well. We developed the world's leading response to HIV and AIDS, and the lives of many thousands of young Australians were not touched by HIV infection, or worse still, early deaths from AIDS. How very different it was when it came to the Australian government response to coronavirus from December 2019 and January 2020. The operative word that governed that response was not trust, but secrecy. When the committees of the Australian government were called together about January 2020, their deliberations were secret. The modelling, the consultations, the comprehension that was developed in those committee deliberations was kept secret. This was wrong, because the strategies that were adopted at that time were not robust, they were not well thought through, but we did not know that they had been adopted. The Parliament was not informed, the press was not informed, and the people were not informed. Had there been robust debate at that time, had it been open and not secret, then I doubt we would have had a situation where the Australian borders, the airports and the ports, were left largely undefended from the entry of coronavirus through February and well into March 2020. There would have been proper surveillance and monitoring. We would have done much better at stockpiling tests, personal protective equipment, and other essential items that we had to have when the problem emerged in February and March 2020. Certainly, we would have taken the Australian people into our confidence and trust and educated and mobilised them against what was certainly going to happen in Australia in a very few short weeks from January 2020. Now, none of these things were done, and as a result, our response was not nearly as robust and effective as it could and should have been. No ASX 200 company would allocate capital and resources without facts and evidence to back up their decision making, and contestability and openness and honesty when competing points of view have to be considered. That was not done by the Australian government. It was only from about mid-March 2020 that, under the weight of public opinion and with open debate and discussion, that things started to change somewhat for the better. But it was slow and grudging. As late as 13th of March, the Australian Grand Prix was still going ahead. Football games were still being held. There were ostentatious displays by senior people that weekend about handshaking and the dismissal of the need for social distancing measures. And this was the weekend of 14-15 March, just over 2 weeks ago. It's not good enough. Now, as a result of open debate and discussion, I think important elements of the Australian response have improved over the last several weeks. We are more on the right track than before, but we are not out of the woods yet. Far from it. Thank you.